Hello and welcome to G Fun Facts Online, your favorite place for the most amazing tidbits from science and beyond. Today, we're blasting off into a truly out-of-this-world topic, microbes in space, and how they could change everything from astronaut dinners to future space colonies. Sounds a bit like science fiction, doesn't it? But I promise you, the reality is even more fascinating. We're talking about space beer, cosmic sourdough, and the tiny organisms that could make it all possible. So buckle up, because we're about to explore fermentation on the final frontier. First up, let's talk about what happens to these microscopic critters when they leave Earth's comfy gravity behind. You see, without gravity pulling things down, there's no buoyancy, no sedimentation, and convection currents behave very differently. This means that for microbes, getting nutrients and getting rid of waste suddenly becomes a game of pure diffusion, and this can lead to some really surprising changes. Take bacteria, for example. You wouldn't think these tiny life forms would care much about gravity, but oh, they do. Some bacteria actually seem to grow faster in space. Imagine this. Non-modal cells, meaning those that can't swim around, might just float happily next to their own beneficial byproducts, leading to an early and longer growth spurt. On the flip side, for others, the reduced transfer of nutrients and oxygen could slow things down. Researchers have found E. coli in space, expressing genes usually linked to starvation, hinting at a tougher time getting food. It's a mixed bag, with some strains thriving and others finding it a bit more challenging. And here's a sticky situation. Literally, microgravity often causes bacteria to form more biofilms. Biofilms are these slimy communities of microbes that stick to surfaces. More biofilms in space? That could be a real headache for keeping equipment clean and astronauts healthy. Imagine that on the International Space Station. Space also messes with their genes. The extreme environment, with its microgravity and radiation, can trigger changes in how genes are expressed. For instance, E. coli in space has been seen to boost genes related to glucose metabolism and acid resistance. It's like they're adapting on the fly, rewiring themselves for survival. And what about the stuff microbes produce? Things like flavors, aromas, or even medicines. These secondary metabolites can also change. Some studies show certain antibiotics produced by Streptomyces species are suppressed in simulated microgravity. But, and this is exciting, there's also potential for new or enhanced production of useful compounds. Imagine discovering a new medicine because we sent some bacteria to space. Fungi are having their own party up there too. Some fungi species actually seem to grow better in microgravity. And without much friction, their spores can float away much more easily, potentially leading to wider dispersal. Perhaps more intriguingly, some space fungi produce more melanin, possibly as a shield against radiation. There's even some mind-bending speculation that they might be able to convert radiation into energy. How cool is that? Okay, so microbes act weird in space. But what does this mean for something we all know and love? Fermentation. How does brewing, baking, and making all sorts of fermented goodies work when you're floating around? Let's start with something many of us enjoy, space beer. Yes, scientists have actually looked into this. Researchers from the University of Florida, using a device called a clinostat to simulate microgravity, found that lager yeast, specifically Saccharomyces pastorianus, grew faster and chewed through sugars more quickly. Interestingly, while the number of yeast cells wasn't hugely different, the beer produced had lower levels of certain volatile ester compounds. One of these is isoamyl acetate, which gives some beers that banana-like flavor. So space beer might actually have a cleaner, perhaps even higher quality flavor for certain styles, all because fewer of these esters were produced. The genetic detective work points to a gene called ATF2, involved in ester production, being less active. And it's not just beer. Remember the Bacon Space Project? They aim to study sourdough fermentation on the International Space Station. Getting that sourdough starter to bubble away correctly, with its complex mix of yeast and bacteria, is crucial for baking bread in orbit. Talk about a challenge. These principles apply to a whole universe of fermented foods. Yogurt, kefir, soy sauce, miso, you name it. Each relies on specific microbial communities, and space could shake things up. In fact, some aerospace fermentation research has hinted at shorter fermentation times and faster growth rates for certain microorganisms. Faster space yogurt, anyone? Now, let's talk flavor. Because even if you can make it, will it taste good? Or even taste the same? Well, as the space beer experiment showed, microgravity can tweak the profile of volatile organic compounds, VOCs, produced during fermentation. These VOCs are the superstars of aroma and flavor. Change them, and you change the entire sensory experience. So your space-aged cheese might have a surprisingly different tang. And it's not just the food that's changing, it's the astronauts too. Physiological shifts in space can mess with their sense of taste and smell. Fluids shift towards the head, causing congestion, much like having a cold. This can dull their perception of flavors. Plus, the spacecraft's atmosphere itself can play a role. So, food consumed in space might need to be much more intensely flavored just to taste normal. And what about texture? Think about the creamy texture of yogurt or the firmness of some cheeses. Microgravity's impact on how fluids behave and how microbial colonies grow could absolutely alter the final consistency and mouthfeel of these foods. Of course, fermenting food in space isn't a walk in the park, or a float in the station for that matter. There are some serious cosmic culinary challenges. First, the equipment. Designing fermentation gear that's safe, reliable, and easy to use in zero-G is a huge engineering puzzle. You need to prevent contamination and carefully manage any gases produced. Safety first. Then there are the resource limitations. Space missions are all about saving mass, volume, and power, so any fermentation process needs to be super efficient and not too demanding. Managing the microbes themselves is another big one. Keeping cultures stable and active over long periods, especially with all that space radiation, is vital. And there's a worry that some microbes might become more virulent or antibiotic resistant in space. Fungal contamination has already been an issue on space stations like Mir and the ISS, requiring constant vigilance and cleaning. And finally, predictability. Because it's such a novel environment, it's often hard to guess what will happen without actually trying it out. Every experiment is a step into the unknown. So, with all these hurdles, why bother? Well, the potential rewards of mastering space fermentation are absolutely immense. Think about long-duration missions to the Moon, Mars, and even beyond. Constantly resupplying food from Earth would be incredibly impractical and astronomically expensive. In-situ food production, with fermentation playing a star role, could give astronauts a sustainable source of fresh, nutritious, and, importantly, palatable food. This means better health, with essential vitamins and probiotics made right there on board. And let's not forget flavor and variety. Astronaut diets can be pretty limited. Fermented foods could add a much-needed dash of excitement and appealing flavors, which can do wonders for crew morale and psychological well-being on those long, isolated journeys. Fermentation could also be a key player in closed-loop life support systems. Imagine microbial processes recycling waste products, like inedible plant parts or even carbon dioxide, back into edible food, breathable air, or other useful resources. How beautifully efficient is that? And the benefits could even trickle back down to Earth. Research into space fermentation could lead to unexpected breakthroughs right here. We might discover new microbial strains with unique abilities, novel flavor compounds, more efficient ways to ferment things, or even new medicines. For example, studying how fungi cope with space radiation could teach us more about DNA repair. Some fungi have even shown they can produce different or increased amounts of useful compounds in space. Aerospace technology itself has already been used to screen for mutant microorganisms with improved fermentation characteristics. So what does the future of cosmic cuisine look like? It could be a fermented feast among the stars. We can envision bioreactors bubbling away on lunar bases or Mars colonies, churning out everything from fresh bread and yogurt to space-brewed ales. And who knows, maybe even entirely new fermented delicacies, perfectly tailored to the unique conditions and resources available light years from Earth. Scientists are even exploring using fungi, specifically their root-like structures called mycelia, to grow habitats on the Moon or Mars. While that's not directly food fermentation, it just shows the incredible versatility of harnessing microbial life in space. the journey to understand how microgravity tweaks the intricate dance of microbes during fermentation is really just beginning. Every single experiment, whether it's a pint of space beer or a loaf of sourdough baked on the ISS, brings us closer to a future where fermented foods aren't just a taste of home for astronauts, but a vital part of self-sufficient life beyond Earth. The unique stresses and altered physics of space might just unlock novel metabolic pathways and flavor profiles we've never encountered before, leading to a brand new chapter in the ancient story of fermentation, a chapter written among the stars. Wow, what a journey! From tiny microbes to the vastness of space, it's clear that fermentation has a future that's truly out of this world. Thanks for joining me today on G Fun Facts Online. I hope you found that as mind-blowing as I did. Don't forget to subscribe and share if you enjoyed this cosmic culinary adventure. Until next time, keep exploring the fun facts all around us, and even beyond.